everybody. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of Ex Post Watcho, your favorite movie retrospective podcast. My name is Jason. I'm joined, as I am every week, by my friend and co-host, Ilana. How are you doing today, Ilana?
I'm great. How are you, Jason?
I'm good. This week, we got a fun one. We are looking at 1990s Goodfellas by Martin Scorsese. Have you seen Goodfellas before?
Yes. I went through a phase when I was a teenager where I was obsessed with like mafia films, and Goodfellas was definitely one that I watched, I think, a couple of times, but it's been like 20 years since I've seen this movie, so I remember virtually nothing about it.
I watched this movie about once a year or so. Yeah, it's great. It's a good time. I mean, it's got all of the trademarks of Scorsese. Am I saying that right? It's kind of fast paced. It's entertaining. It's got a great soundtrack. Lots of like flashy editing stuff. Good cast. Ray Liotta. He's terrific in it, as well as Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci. So yeah, I'm just always happy to go back and watch this movie.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited because I did love it when I saw it. But yeah, like I said, it's been so long, so it'll be a treat, I'm sure.
What have you seen The Godfather, and like how deep down the mafia hole have you gone?
Oh, I've seen the Godfather series. Sometimes they leave out the third one several times.
Winona Ryder's fault, by the way.
I know. Yeah, I was obsessed with The Godfather when I was younger. I was convinced I was going to like marry an Italian man. I was like, this is my life. This is what I'm meant to be married into and what my life will be. Like, I was crazy for these movies when I was younger.
I've never seen The Godfather.
What?
So we'll get to that at some point.
None of them?
No,
None
I haven't.
Of them?
I watched.
We're gonna get to those pretty early in the new year, I would say.
Yeah, I watched like half of the first one when I was really young and just was like way too impatient for something like that. Whereas this, this clicked with me right away. This movie has a ton of Sopranos actors in it. You ever watch The Sopranos?
Okay, I have not seen The Sopranos. Yeah, I was over my Italian mafia obsession by the time Sopranos was hitting the screens.
Yeah, that's a much bigger commitment. I love that show. Yeah. People still love it today. It's very popular on Twitter. It's very memeable. Yeah, a lot of people from this movie made it to that show. Lorraine Bracco as Dr. Melfi, and then some of the other characters have more minor roles in this movie, but are main actors in The Sopranos. A little bit different though. I mean, that show's mostly about like the characters themselves and like their dysfunctions, whereas I feel this movie's a lot more like, I mean, everybody's dysfunctional, but it's more bouncy and entertaining.
Yeah, this one's based on a true story too, right?
It is. It's based on a 1985 book called Wise Guy.
Wise Guy.
Written by the character who Ray Liotta plays.
Right. And I love Ray Liotta. I sometimes forget about him. He's so good. I love him in anything he does.
Yeah, I think this is like peak Ray Liotta, Joe Pesci, Robert De Niro. Like, they're just like, especially because, like, I don't know, Robert De Niro these days kind of feels like he's sort of mailing things in a little bit. So it's great to
Dirty
see.
Grandpa style.
Oh, that looks rough.
I know.
So yeah, it's nice to see him, actually trying and putting on a good performance in this.
Yeah.
It'll
be fun.
You'll hear Ray Liotta yell Karen a lot. That's going to be a lot of fun in the year 2020. Karen!
Oh, I've totally... Yeah, like, things are coming back to me. I'm sure I'll watch this and it will be one of those situations where I'm like, oh, right. I can picture, like, them in a booth at, like, the restaurant or the lounge or whatever. But that's kind of where I'm at right now with my memories.
Well, let's not delay the inevitable. Let us go watch Goodfellas and report back. We'll see you in a minute. Hey, I'm podcasting over here. We did it. We're back. We watched Goodfellas. Okay, I want to make one quick correction before we get into this, before I forget. I think I said in the intro that the book this was based on was written by Ray Liotta's character. That is wrong. The book is written by Nicholas Pileggi. So, fact corrected. Ilana, what'd you think of Goodfellas?
I loved it. Like I said, it's been a really long time since I had seen it. But I really enjoyed it the first time I watched it. I enjoyed it just as much this time. I actually, so normally we take notes and then we share them with each other the afternoon that before we record. I really didn't take many notes because I was just enjoying watching it so much that I didn't really want to look down or pause to scribble much down. So yeah, it's a great movie. I know you loved it. Did you enjoy your rewatching of it?
Absolutely. It's always a good time. Yeah, I was kind of like, as I was watching it, trying to figure out like what to write down to talk about. And I don't know, I was just like, why would I point this out? It's the movie. You know what I mean? I watch it expecting that everybody has seen this movie and like knows all the details and loves it because that's how I feel about it. Yeah, it's a good time. It's an energetic film in a lot of ways. It's pretty much going at 100% the whole time. Especially towards the end. Yeah, it's got a great cast, great chemistry between them. It's a lot of fun. So it's one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, it's great. It's like, it's such a classic too. Like I know I messaged you before I dug into it yesterday and I was like, geez, we have to pick like shorter length movies because this is 2.5 hours long, but it really does not feel that long. It felt like it was over in a heartbeat. There's not one moment wasted in this movie.
Yeah, it definitely moves along at a clip. So we've got Ray Liotta as Henry Hill. Henry Hill is a Irish gentleman in New York in the 50s, a young man who starts working for the mob. And
Irish Italian though, right?
Irish Italian,
mom's
yes.
Sicilian.
Yeah. But not enough to make the cut to actually become a fully made man.
Be made, yeah.
Yeah. Ray Liotta's great in this. I love him. He's a great actor.
Yeah, I feel like people always forget about Ray Liotta. He's so good. This is like maybe the perfect role for him also. Yeah,
because he's charming, but also like just a complete sort of psycho at the same time.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't come across, his personality normally it doesn't come across as like this guy's a scary criminal. Like he actually seems like if you just met him walking down the street, he'd probably be a nice guy, but then he can also just be like vicious and brutal when he needs to be.
Yeah, I feel like his personality is very charming and very likable, but he is of questionable character.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's figured out a lifestyle that works for him and thinks that other people are suckers for not playing the same game.
I mean, he's not wrong. I kind of have to agree with him on that front.
The movie opens with, actually the opening shot of this movie really kind of like sets the tone. And you kind of get everything this movie is about in that opening scene. So Ray Liotta and Joe Pesci and Robert De Niro they're driving down the road and there's like some thumping in the trunk and they open it up and there is Phil Leotardo from The Sopranos brutally beaten up and they just like shoot him and stab him. And then they do freeze frame, you zoom in on the face, freeze frame, voiceover. I always wanted to be a gangster.
Yeah, you know exactly what you're getting. I mean, I feel like just the movie poster, you know exactly what you're getting before you even see this. But I think this is such a perfect setup for a film. It's like just a couple of minutes and you're like, here we go. Yeah.
And so I feel like about 90% of this movie is the camera is zooming in. Like the camera is constantly zooming in. It's almost a bit ridiculous. Like the last couple movies we've watched, I've pointed out that like the camera work has been, I don't know, say like simple or just like very static. Like here's a camera and like sometimes it turns and that's about it. Otherwise it's just like framing a shot. In this movie, the camera is like just always zooming in on someone and then it freeze frames, usually in the midst of some kind of violence. And then you get some voiceover just kind of saying, what's going on.
And not just like some voiceover. The voiceover happens through this entire movie, which I didn't remember. Like, I thought that the voiceover kind of calmed down, and well, it does a little bit once we kind of get into the story, but it never really goes away. But I mean, I think it's done well. I don't think it's annoying or distracting. It makes perfect sense and really helps move the movie along. Sometimes there's too much narration and it feels like you're almost watching an audiobook rather than experiencing a movie, which didn't feel like that here. But yeah, there's just so much narration in this.
Yeah, the narration switches characters between him and Karen a couple times. It was kind of interesting when that happens. I like the way that effect works.
Okay, I like how it starts because I didn't remember that. So I was like, oh, here we go. And then it just stops.
The voiceover or her voiceover?
Karen. Yeah, then it just sort of like really abruptly stops. And we actually don't see a lot of Karen in the middle. But I was like, this sort of made me question it. Like, why did they even bother with Karen's narration? Because we don't actually get too much insight in terms of like her development from that perspective. Like, she obviously transforms a lot by the end of the movie, and that's really interesting to watch that develop. But in terms of the narration, I don't think that it really added much, except for like that first moment where I was like, oh, okay. Like, now it's her perspective of what, because you do kind of go like, come on, lady, are you kidding me? You don't know what this guy's up to. And her voice over narration really justifies her behavior a little bit and gives us a bit of insight into how she's feeling. But I think we could have figured that out without her narration. So I don't know. That was literally out of this whole movie, that's the only thing that I'm like, I don't know if that worked for me. I'd be interested to like maybe rewatch it and see exactly where it did stop, and maybe there was a reason why, or that made more sense. But I just watched it once and I was like, what? Where'd she go?
Yeah, the bulk of her narration is when her and Henry like meet and get married and all that kind of stuff, and she's just like talking you through the whole what's going on in her head the whole time, the way it all worked for her. I think it does kind of disappear for a while. It does show up in the scene towards the end where she is on the bed with the gun in his face, and like, you know, she's like saying stuff, but it also had like, there was some voiceover there saying like, you know, why should she, Janice, that other woman, win?
Right.
Yeah, the voiceover is fun. I don't know. I like when she first shows up and you get it from her perspective. Like, that's kind of a bit of a surprise, and it just makes it work.
Yeah, absolutely.
What did you think of fake young Ray Liotta and fake young Joe Pesci as their kids in New York rising in the mob?
Yeah, they were great. They were a lot of fun. I thought they were really charismatic actors. I enjoyed them. And the little Joe Pesci kid's voice was great.
Yeah, they did that. That was really good, like, young person casting. I was like impressed with how much they resembled the older ones. So yeah, we basically get this intro, you know, telling us Henry gets a gig in the mob and he loves it and he's making money and he gets respect, and, you know, it's fantastic. His parents aren't happy about it. His dad beats the shit out of him and is like, yo, you need to go to school and get a job. Don't, you know, he's an Irish immigrant who like is at the bottom and he doesn't want his son to fail. But he grows up. Then we cut to adult Ray Liotta looking cool, probably smoking a cigarette. Yeah.
Also, and this is a bit later, but Lorraine Bracco, Karen, she's like, oh, he's 21. And I was like, holy shit. Like, I understand that this spans quite a few years. That's the roughest looking 21-year-old I've ever seen in my life. Like, good for them. I hate when they age people with like too many effects or makeup or whatever. The fact that she just told us and we have to suspend our disbelief and just go with the story. But I was like, Jesus, he looks good. Don't get me wrong. Ray Liotta is a handsome man, but he did not look 21.
Yeah, that was when that line came out. I was like, oh, okay, he's 21. He looks, you know, like he was mid 30s at the time they filmed this. And, you know, you think of like that zoom in on his face at the very end of the movie when he's all like fucked up on cocaine and he's like pale and his eyes are red and his hair is all messed up. Like, that's the same guy that you're seeing in that earlier scene. I feel like they did do a bit more. I don't know if it was like the lighting or maybe makeup. I don't think they aged anyone up, but I do feel like Lorraine Bracco seemed to like look a little bit older toward the end of the movie. And in the early scene, she looked younger. Like, not a huge difference, but like I think they did a bit of work to like try and make them look younger, make the faces a little softer.
I agree. And like even Lorraine Bracco, her hair, the way her hair was done was very like young womanly, whereas at the end she's like, that's a woman, that's a full grown woman. And even just the way she holds herself as well. It's really subtle, but you can tell there's a difference there, which is great.
Yeah, the opposite of that, and I haven't seen this movie yet, is the Irishman, the like new Scorsese with De Niro and Joe Pesci, and they do a lot of aging magic in that movie to make people look younger. I watched a clip, and it was a scene of Robert De Niro going into a store, like a convenience store, and like basically beating a guy down, you know, and he punches him and stomps on him, and it looks really bad because Robert De Niro is, you know, he's an older man now, like he's, you know, 60s, 70s probably. And they get his face to look young, but the whole scene, it's a very physically performative scene of like, he's beating a guy up. And it really, like, just the physicality of it does not work at all. Like, it's extremely bizarre to watch. So yeah,
I haven't
don't
seen it yet.
Stop changing people's faces with computers and stop bringing back dead people. It's weird. Just hire young people or lie about how old they are. We'll go along with it. It's okay.
Yeah.
So they hang out at this place called the Copacabana. We get a shot of all these different, you know, supporting actor mob guys that we're going to meet throughout the movie. And then we get the famous Joe Pesci, "I'm funny? You think I'm funny?" scene, which is like really uncomfortable to watch, actually.
It's super uncomfortable to watch. And it goes on so long, but it's great. Like I did not remember how this scene ended. And I was like, oh, wait, what? I thought that these guys were buddies. So it did actually have me stressing out a little bit. And also, Ray Liotta has the most psychotic laugh I've ever seen. He's
got
so
crazy
good, I
eyes.
think. Yeah, he does. It's so good, though. I think it really adds to his character and like almost how carefree he is. Like, he's like, yeah, we've got this. Like, we're kicking it. We're kings. No worries.
That so I guess that scene came from improvisation when they were like rehearsing for the movie. So I guess they had a lot of time to like act together, and they did a lot of improv, and then the stuff they came up with would get reworked into the final script. And that story was an event that actually happened to Joe Pesci. He was a waiter, and I guess he complimented a mobster by saying he's funny, and then the dude did not like that. So I guess slice of life there. That scene's funny too because it really kind of sets up what Tommy's all about. He is basically like in that scene, he turns into like, I'm joking, you know, like he's it was a joke the whole time. I don't think it really was, you know, or I think there was a lot of like genuine insecurity behind him there, because that's kind of, you see that throughout the movie of him just like feeling disrespected and feeling like he has to like make himself look tough in front of other people, and perhaps always overdoing it.
Yeah, his character is so unstable. It's real. Anytime he's on screen, my body was just like, oh, like I was so scared. What is this guy going to do to anybody at any moment? But like at the same time, he was so charming and funny to watch that it was. I think that's the great thing about these sort of mobster gangster movies, but also the horrifying thing is it does glamorize it quite a bit, like their lives and being a part of that, even if they're like, this is not like, this is a bit of a cautionary tale of like, hey, this will fuck you up, but also look at how much fun we had. Look at how cool these guys are, because everybody's so cool in this. Even the very unstable, frightening Tommies.
Yeah, everybody kind of looks like they're having a good time early on. I like the poor guy who owns that restaurant. They basically trick him into like getting the mob involved, and then the mob is just like, okay, we're just going to sell all your inventory and make you go broke. There's an episode of The Sopranos that kind of deals with that. Has Robert Patrick, the T-1000 Terminator, in it as like Tony Soprano's high school buddy, and he gets like in debt or whatever, and then Tony Soprano just like takes over his sports goods store and just makes him order all this inventory that they're going to steal and sell, and he's just like decimated and crying. Yeah, basically the same thing happening here. Like that's kind of like, you know, what these organizations do. It's not, folks, it's not good.
Yeah.
So then we get Henry and Karen's relationship, and this kind of is a big chunk of the movie. So, we see how they meet each other, and Henry's just sort of like not interested, kind of a dick. And then she like chases him down and yells at him. And that's a cute scene between them. I really like that. Like the way their relationships does seem like kind of, I think the performers have chemistry. Like it's believable between them. And, it kind of is this like 21-year-old young romance that, immediately kind of like you see her go from like this guy, ooh, he's interesting and he's got money and people know him and stuff like that, to like, I was at the house with all the other mob wives and they all have bad skin and they look beaten down. And you're like, yeah.
Yeah, but she stays. I like that. Which scene is it? And she says like, so it's after, they meet the guy across the street when they're at the club.
The tennis guy with the white shorts. That guy just looks like a dickhead.
Yeah, you're like, what's going on? And then you realize like then she calls Henry. And is like, he was like touching me and I told him to get off and I'm just upset. And he just beats the shit out of him. I love that scene because this buddy's just across the street working on his car or just kicking it around his car with his two buddies. And Ray Liotta just stomps across the street and beats the shit out of him. And the two guys, the two actors playing his friends, they barely move. They barely even look scared. They're just like watching it go down. And they're like, oh, okay. So don't point the gun at me. And I love when Ray Liotta or Henry comes back and tells her to hide the gun. And she's like saying like, well, it should have been a red flag, but it kind of turned me on. And like, she doesn't say, but I loved him. She doesn't say anything like that. It's just like, this is an exciting, sexy thing for her. And I like how we get that perspective from that character.
What a fun, sexy time for you.
Rather than it being this sort of over-the-top romance, it really is presented as being pretty real and pretty raw, and understanding why a woman would stay with a man who is maybe that dangerous to be with. It's because it's sexy and interesting. It's not because... I do think that they genuinely love each other, and they obviously are very deeply connected. Especially, near the end of the film, they've been through all these things together. But I love that moment. I think it's so real. I also just like love Lorraine Bracco. She's so good in this. Everything that Karen does makes me laugh and also breaks my heart a little bit. So
yeah, she has kind of a rough go in this movie, but yeah, she's really good. Yeah, I mean, like, basically, she calls him crying because, like, guy, guess got handsy with her. And then, he basically, like, picks her up and then charges across the street in a fucking awesome outfit, I gotta say. Like, he's wearing, like, this, like, brown leather jacket and, like, a black shirt and black pants. I was like, he looks so cool. And then just beats the shit out of that guy. And, like, hey, get a man that can beat up your assailant for you. Like, I understand why that would be appealing.
He's the knight in shining brown leather.
Yeah. So they get married, and then within a month, they're all still living with mom. I guess they wanted them to stay there, and we get the scene where like the mom is like, "Why isn't he home? He's been gone. He's not Jewish." And then Karen's like, "He's with his friends." It just like all sounds terrible.
Well, they're only 21. Like that, it's hard to believe because obviously they're older than that. And I was kind of surprised that they're still living with mom and dad, but I guess.
Yeah. You know what? Like my brain doesn't read them as being that young. Like I kind of forget in that scene. I think they're like in their 30s and it's like this, what's going on here? And then like he shows up in the middle of the night and mom comes out screaming at him. And I like her line about her dad. The man hasn't been able to digest a decent meal in 6 weeks.
I love the parents in this movie, like her parents, and we see a lot of, we don't see a lot of Henry's parents, but they're great when they're on screen. And then Joe Pesci's parents or mom, which I guess we can talk about in a little while. But all the supporting characters are so good in this. They really round everything out and help create this world that doesn't really make sense as an outsider. Of like, why do you function this way? How could you do this? But when you really see it all the little pieces fit together, it's done so well. I don't know.
Yeah, it really it is a community ultimately. Like it is like a big family, because basically like they're all tight with each other, and you get married and these are your friends and you hang out with this group and you support each other, kind of. Sort of seems like maybe at a certain point you're not maybe as supportive as you should be, and and there's a lot of like dysfunction in it. Like I think this is something that also is a theme in The Sopranos, is like, what does it mean to be a woman married to one of these guys? And there's different characters in that show that have different experiences with that. Like Carmela, the main Tony Soprano's wife, seems to kind of be like more willing to assert herself, versus like some of the other women are just very like, he's the boss and we just go along with it. So a lot of her story is just kind of like, especially this chunk of the movie, is just her like realizing the kind of situation she's in. And again, that scene with all the other wives and they're all looking real 70s, and she's just like, these women don't look good. This doesn't look like it's a good time for them. And they talk about like how shitty their kids are and how they beat them, yet they're still shitty. And then, and she comes home and she's like, what if you go to jail? And this, I think is the first time we hear Karen.
Karen, it's just such an unfortunate name in the context of 2020 now.
I don't think this Karen is a Karen.
No, I don't think so. She's really sweet. Even when the guys come to the house, the
cops,
law enforcement.
I offered
she's like,
them
want
coffee.
A coffee? Yeah. And actually what you're talking about as well is it's being a big family and community. I do also like that sort of piece where she's discovering what this means and what her life is looking like, and how whenever they go someplace like Jimmy's there, or they don't associate with outsiders. It's almost cultish.
Yeah.
You're in and you're in, and the outside is those are people to be suspicious of, or those are working against you, or those are people you're going to fuck over, really. But here, this is your little safe space, and forget about everybody else. Forget about them.
Yeah. So we get the scene with the fucking shine box. This is the bane of every Sopranos video comment section, even though it's not from the Sopranos. Everybody loves the stupid shine box bit.
Shine box.
Because the guy that they murder is a main character on that show. So basically, this guy gets out of jail, old time mob guy, and he's, poking fun at Tommy, saying, I used to shine my shoes. And then Tommy loses his shit and they beat the shit out of him and kill him. Almost. This I love this moment. It's like, this is an iconic scene in this movie. This is like where the music in this movie. So this movie has 50. There's no score as far as I know, but there's a ton of music, and like all of the music is just songs that fit the mood, which I love. I love that decision. Like, I like when movies do that. Scores are cool, but like it's kind of fun to just see what you can do with like existing material and make it work. But yeah, in this song, it's a Donovan song that's playing, and it's just like a weird song for a beatdown scene, but it's like totally the right song. Like, it totally fits. It just kind of sounds almost a little bit sad, but like rocky.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I really like the soundtrack, or like the fact that it's just contemporary music, like for the times that it's set in. Because you look at something like The Godfather, which I think is the other really, really big iconic. And
it has like a hard electronic soundtrack behind it, which was a weird choice.
It's like a lot of synth kind of vibes. But like The Godfather, you hear the music and it's melodramatic and it's over the top and it's very like, old country kind of thing. And this is entirely different. It's cooler. Yeah, everybody's so cool in this. I don't know.
It's
Even the
very
music's
very
cool.
rock and roll. There's a scene later in the movie where you see Jimmy in the bar and the camera is zooming in on him and he's at the bar like smoking a cigarette and it's playing a Cream song. And folks, if you're ever wondering why people get into smoking despite it being like the stupidest thing you could ever do, scenes like that totally are like, I could be that guy the camera's zooming in on very coolly smoking a cigarette right now, having some kind of thought. So this is why they have all these laws now. You can't do stuff like this in movies because Martin Scorsese made it too cool to smoke.
Yeah. They all look cool. Smoking, not smoking,
Beating people up.
beating the shit out of people, just standing by a car.
Yeah, lean on a car with your arms crossed.
Yeah.
Fucking great move.
Amazing.
As long as you have the right camera person to observe you doing it. Otherwise, may as well not be happening.
Yeah.
So yeah, they throw this guy in their trunk and they're going to go bury him, but they got to go get a shovel. So they go to Tommy's house and Mom is up and she's like, come on, boys, let's have some dinner. I love this scene. This is a great scene. I love that mom. She's so cute.
That's Martin Scorsese's real mom.
Really? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. His dad's in it too. His dad was the guy when they're in jail who puts too many onions in the sauce.
Oh, but it was
Yeah.
still a good sauce.
Yeah, but I love this lady. This whole scene is so good. I agree with you. This is one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
Like, this is kind of like, I guess this movie is, of all the mob stuff that's out there, again, I've barely seen any other. I've seen this in The Sopranos. That's it. So I'll just say, compared to The Sopranos, Sopranos, has its humor, but it's, kind of like a dour show for a lot of the time. It doesn't have that like energy, whereas this movie is like, it's energetic and it's funny, and like this scene is like dark comedy because there's the guy in the trunk the whole time and and there's like numerous jokes, like they're joking about it in front of the mom because she brings out that painting and she's like, it's this guy in a boat and this dog's looking this way and this dog's looking that way. And then they like point at it and they're like, hey, doesn't that look like the guy? And they're literally like, hey, doesn't that look like the guy that's in our trunk right now? And they're, oh yeah, except if he didn't have a beard. And then he's going to borrow the knife.
Where the fuck did she pull this painting from? She literally goes, look what I painted, and just pulls it out. Like, does she store it under the table?
Maybe she just did it that day and she hasn't had time to hang it up.
Sure.
I don't know. You just always
I
have
did
a
love this
painting
though.
ready.
My family's not Italian, but we are Southeastern European, and I think it's a very common thing for Southern and Eastern European families. Like, it's what time at night? And she's like, I'll make you something, which for some people would be like some cheese and crackers, but she's got like the meatballs and the spaghetti and a whole feast in the middle of the night, and is just sitting there. Oh, you boys. And I love the whole thing throughout the show. Like, she's trying to get Tommy to settle down with a good girl, and he's joking with her about it. It all seems very natural. Like, I wonder how much of this was in the script versus how much was improvised. I'd be curious to see that.
So he takes the knife and they go do the deed.
His mom's knife.
Yeah. We get a cameo from Christopher from Sopranos as Spider. Just a sad.
Is that Michael Imperioli?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, do you know him from something other than The Sopranos?
I've never seen The Sopranos.
What else? What? I don't know him from any other piece of media.
I don't know. I've seen him in other things, but I definitely don't. I know who Michael Imperioli is.
I've seen interviews with him. He seems very like nice and bright.
Nice and bright. Aw.
Yeah, where I say that just because his character is maybe he's not dumb or anything. Whatever. Poor Spider. I feel bad for him. He just gets fucked. He gets shot. Like, this is Tommy just like being a crazy person and a total like psychopath, because like he does the whole dance for me thing and he shoots his foot, and then like later on he's back with the cast and Spider gives him a little lip, and then Tommy just can't handle that and shoots him.
Does he? A little lip? I think he tells him to go fuck himself or something. What does he say?
Yeah. Basically, I think that's it.
That's more than a little lip, I think.
I guess, but I mean, like,
Worth being shot over? I mean, no.
yeah, like the scene is like kind of shot. Like that's a moment that I could sort of like, you know, I've never seen anyone get up at a table and shoot someone, but like you've ever had a moment where like things were going really well and people were having fun, and then one person just kind of like fucking flips the switch and overreacts, and you're like, whoa, we were having a good time. You know, like he you know, beaks at him and says, go fuck yourself. But then all the guys are like, oh, you know, and it's like, it's young guy, you know, he's clearly like, seems to be, I'm suspecting he's going to like be a mafia guy when he gets older, you know, and they're just kind of like, hey,
he's
you know,
paying his dues.
Look who's growing up here, and they're going to rib each other. And then Tommy fucks it all up by shooting him.
Yeah. I realize that this is like a movie and we only have a certain amount of time, but I would have liked to have seen Tommy's relationships with all the women that he's with. I mean, I don't think I would have liked to see it because I think it's probably horrifying, but that would have been an interesting look. Say this if this was a series. Say this was like Goodfellas was a mini series. I would have liked to have seen more of that.
Yeah, be careful what you wish for. I think it would be very unpleasant. I don't know if Tommy has the charm that Henry has.
No.
We get a bunch of stuff about Henry being unfaithful. He's got a girlfriend, Janice, who has... There are two sets in this movie that are just fucking hideous, and this is one of them, and it's Janice's apartment. Oh, God, is it miserable to look at, because it's just like... Everything is pink, like the furniture, it's pink and like light blue and teal, and all the doors are painted pink, and like the wallpaper is hideous. Just like being in that room or in that apartment would make me not want to be alive.
I mean, I can't disagree with you. That was a nasty looking place. But maybe fitting for with Janice?
Janice, yeah.
Janice. The whore.
Is this the superintendent? I want you to know that you have a whore living in 2R. I love that part.
I love how Karen goes with her two young daughters to confront this woman. I love
She's got to take care of the fucking kids. Like Henry's not doing it. Like Henry's a fucking deadbeat dad, or you know, like he's off doing his bullshit.
Look, he's supporting the family.
He's bringing home the money.
The bacon. Yeah.
So Karen finds out and then, you know, sticks the gun in his face, and I like that was some real acting by Lorraine Bracco there. Like she, you know, when she's like on the ground and he's like choking her and then he runs away and she's like, oh God. That was melodrama.
Yeah, she has a couple of moments in this movie that are just so big. There's that one, and then there's the one at the end when they realize they're fucked and they're fighting. I think maybe it's when he's like, where'd you put the Coke? And she's like, I flushed it. And then they're just like, end up shriveled into this little ball together in the corner of the room, which I loved. I love how that scene plays out. But those two moments were so outrageous.
Yeah, that is wailing. Just severe, horrible screams of existential agony. The gang gets in trouble and goes to jail. You know, I haven't mentioned like De Niro and Jimmy. He's kind of around for all of this. Although not for this part. I don't know why I brought it up at that time because he's not in these scenes. The gang goes to jail. This is the part where I had to pause the movie and go cook some food because I just was like, they're like cooking up all this stuff and I'm like, I haven't eaten all day. Yeah, they make like a good dinner scene in that prison. Yeah, and all that food had to be smuggled in by Karen, and we get this like ridiculous scene in the like prison, you know, meet and greet area where, you know, she's like fucking had it with Henry because she sees that Henry's mistress was visiting him the day before, and then she's like, "You want me? I gotta smuggle all this shit in." She's like pulling fucking loaves of bread out of her jacket.
I love that scene so much. Everything Karen does in this, I was just like, "Fuck yeah, Karen!" I wanted more of Karen. Like, she's not a consistent presence in this movie. She really is gone for a lot of this, but she's so funny. Unintentionally so, probably, but I'm just gonna keep. I'm a big Karen fan.
Team Karen.
Team Karen.
You could wear that as a hat or something and just confuse people.
No. Like, have you seen Goodfellas?
Yeah. She's a good Karen. The good one. So while he's in jail, Henry figures out how to sell drugs, and that's kind of his game plan after this is he does the thing that Paulie says you should never ever do, which is sell drugs. But he's got to make a buck.
Paulie, who we also haven't talked about, Paul Sorvino, who's so great.
He's scary. He looks scary.
Really? I find him there's something very comforting about him for me. I really like him. I find him very comforting, maybe because he reminds me of like my grandpa's friends and stuff. Like he's sweet in this. He's got everyone's back. Like he of all of them, he's I think the least threatening in all of this. He's giving them good advice.
Don't do drugs or sell
He's
them.
like, hey, don't do the thing with these people. And then like the next scene we see Henry like doing the thing with those people.
Well, he was like already in it at that point, I think. I think that conversation between him and Paulie, he's already doing the drug thing because that was after he got out of jail.
I don't know. The timeline's all scrambled up in my head. Timeline. The timeline.
Those wonderful timelines.
They're all the rage.
Yeah, so like Henry selling drugs, we hear Gimme Shelter by the Rolling Stones, just pointing that out because that's a good song, and that's one of those like I like this song at this point in the movie. And also like that is the opening song in The Departed, or like there is very early in that movie he used that song. Getting a little lazy there, Martin.
Yeah, I can't deal with the Martin Scorsese Leonardo DiCaprio love affair. I'm just not into it.
Departed is a good movie though. It's really good.
It's fine.
But like, you know what? Like, I've never gone super deep into Scorsese, but like he kind of does have like this movie. I bet if I watched The Departed tonight, I'd be like, this is kind of the same movie, you know, or it's very similar.
He's got his thing.
Yeah, he's got a style. Like when you know, I became like a teenager and got into movies and stuff like that. That was the era of like the Tarantino and the Guy Ritchie and all the other, and David Fincher and then a bunch of like shitty hack directors. But like Scorsese kind of like, I didn't realize that until recently. That like, oh, he kind of like pioneered that style. Like this fits in just fine with those kind of movies in terms of like visual flair and, you know, hipness
And like it's a lot of like dudes,
a lot of guys, men doing men things, like kind of giving a glimpse of some sort of inner circle of bad male behavior. Yeah, and criminality,
and the broads who love them
can't get enough. And you know why they can't get enough? Because when you're with a guy like Henry, you get that house they live in the 80s, which is the other god ugly set in this movie. Like everything
with a remote control for everything.
Yeah, I love the like fake rock wall that opens up to like the entertainment center, and like the TV is like, I don't know, some 19-inch CRT TV, whereas today that would just be like fucking massive. It like that house is both hideous because it's just like so busy. There's just like everything is dark. It's a very like dimly colored.
Yeah, patterns everywhere.
There's patterns everywhere. There's just like so much stuff on the walls and like stuff on shelves, and it makes me feel kind of like claustrophobic. But at the same time, that entertainment center, I was just like, I want to go back in time because just everything sucks now. I want to live in that time with like that kind of technology setup. So Henry finds Maury we haven't talked about, comes up with the big heist. I can't even remember what it is. They steal some shit from somewhere, and it's a real big deal, but they get a crew of people to do it, and it is successful, but this is now the bad times are really happening in this movie. This is the beginning of the end. Okay. Did you notice who the character Stax was? He is the guy who steals the truck and like forgets it and they kill him. He's the black guy.
Oh, yeah, Samuel L. Jackson.
Okay, I saw this movie so many times, I did not realize it was Samuel L. Jackson. because like he's only in 2 scenes, and like the second scene where they murder him, like I don't even think you get a straight up shot of his face the entire time. So it took me such a long time to like actually realize that was Samuel L. Jackson.
And he looks so young, even though I don't think he was that young when this was made, but he just looks like such a youngster. He just looks kind of gangly, poor kid who's got caught up in their bullshit.
He got stoned with his girlfriend. Jimmy is paranoid that, you know, the cops found the truck, they got fingerprints, this is all going to go bad, so he starts killing everybody. And we get a lot of this is like Robert De Niro is in this chunk of the movie a lot. Like he's kind of been in it throughout it, but I think this is like more you get to see a lot of his character, and he's basically just like pissed off because no one is taking things as seriously as him, and they're buying like flashy shit and stuff like that, or they're just like behaving irresponsibly. And so he eventually murders everyone.
He's the, I think, scariest person in this movie, because like Tommy, you kind of know what to expect, which is you don't know what to expect, and he's a hothead and he flies off the handle easily. But the scariest ones are always the ones who kind of step back a little and observe everybody and are sort of scheming in the background, which Robert De Niro I think does very well. He's very like it's like a smooth operator, kind of like he's just there enough to, I think, you know, establish this trust and these relationships. And he's very godfatherly in the sense that like his character in The Godfather is very similar. Like he keeps his cool, but he's just the most murderous asshole, really not giving one shit either way. Like it's so hard to imagine being that brutal and having that little regard for human life. And when somebody seems so, like, he doesn't seem cold. He seems warm and pleasant and friendly and polite. One time a friend of mine was like, I had a crush on a guy, and I was like, everyone says he's a nice guy. And he went, I think he's polite. I don't think he's nice. And ever since then, I've always been, whenever I meet someone new, I'm like, are they polite or are they nice? And I think like Jimmy's very polite, and he looks very put together and gentlemanly, but he's brutal. He's so scary.
Yeah, the last, I would say, third of this movie, I mean, the theme is paranoia. Like we see, you know, Henry becoming extremely paranoid toward the end. But like, yeah, he basically is like, now he's just concerned about his well-being, you know? And so he's like, if I got to fucking kill someone to, you know, ensure that, I'll do it, you know? And he systematically does it to everybody.
And not just someone, like his friends, the people in his inner circle, and wives too, which is kind of shocking to see because like you hear a lot about, especially with like certain organized crime groups, how like wives and kids are totally off the table. And if you go there, it's, you know, you're stepping over a line because there's an agreement. So that was kind of surprising too, because the one guy who buys the flashy car, him and his wife end up in the car together.
So, okay, dead. I wonder if, because like he tries to kill Henry and he tries to kill Karen. That one was like pretty fucked up. Like when.
Okay, wait, when?
So this is a little bit later on, but after Henry's been like busted for drugs and stuff like that, and he's out on bail, Karen goes to see. Oh yes, yeah, and he's like, "Hey, you want some dresses? They're just down there." And that scene actually is really funny because like she's like, "Oh, okay," you know, walking down the street, gonna get the dresses, and then like as she gets to the one she's supposed to go in, there's like 2 guys in there she notices, and she's like, whoa, what the fuck? And then De Niro's just standing in the street kind of doing this hand gesture like, it's just around the corner, like he's trying to nudge her in, and it looks so ridiculous, but it's like really sinister because you realize what he's doing, and you know, in that moment he's like, it's very vicious what he's hoping to do there. Yeah,
and because he's been her connection, like when Henry's been in prison and she tells him like, I've been talking to Jimmy or whatever, and he's like, no, like, no, like, don't trust people. You can't and she keeps doing it anyway, thinking that Jimmy really is on her side and really does care about her and wants to support her. Yeah. Ugh.
I wonder if the other folks with the pink car, like if they were, so the big thing is you can't kill made men. Like if you're not in the mob and you kill a mob guy, like you are just fucked. So I wonder if those two, maybe they weren't mob or he was desperate enough at that point to do it. Oh, actually, no, what am I saying? Yeah. He kills everyone else. A bunch of those guys were definitely made men. So yeah, I don't know. Jimmy doesn't give a shit. Jimmy is about self-preservation.
Like, what's his name? Frank Severo, the freezer truck guy.
Wasn't that Carbone?
Well. I don't know what his name is in the movie.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think that was Carbone. So
apparently, also a little tidbit that I read, I don't know if this is true. Apparently, he's like brought lawsuits against people for them ripping off his character or his likeness for other like mob related characters. Like I think he brought one against The Simpsons. I didn't go too far into this, but it would be interesting to look at.
I was thinking if it's like a movie or something, like like he didn't invent the character of like Italian mobster, you know? Like that's a little get off your high horse there, sir. Maybe a cartoon, maybe they're just like, this is the guy we're gonna use. But like what
are you gonna do? Like you have like an olive-skinned, dark-haired, sort of ruggedly handsome man in a nice suit? Like that's anybody from Southern Italy. What are you talking about?
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like anybody in the mob can make that claim. Maybe even real mobsters. They should start suing. I like that scene though, where they're kind of showing you all the bodies. That again is like another like beautiful. Here's a song, piano thing with the guitar slide, and you're just like seeing all the stuff, and it's great. Definitely like one of those scenes that makes the movie. I'm trying not to use the word iconic all the time, but like it's an iconic scene in this movie.
Yeah.
Tommy gets murdered. His death. I actually am sad. I find it that the way it's shown is quite like, oh, you know, it's. I know it's coming, but like it's shocking because like Tommy's all excited he's about to get made, and they bring him in, and he's making small talk with the guys, and they show that scene like it's right after the scene where all the murders happen, and the voiceover says like Tommy was gonna get made, and the music, that song is still playing when they I think first get to the house, and then the music stops. So it's like it kind of tricks you because it's sort of like that part's over, the dead body scene is over, and now this is happening, and then like he looks in the room and sees there's no one there, and he just goes, oh no, and like then gets shot, and like I find that so like disturbing.
It's so sad, and he's been such a major player in the movie that his death is so abrupt. There's no real, the word escapes me. There's no, it's just like any other death in this movie, which is I think what makes it so upsetting when it happens, because we've gotten to know this character more than these other guys who are these sort of supporting characters. Like it's sad when Spider dies, but it's more like, oh shit, it's more about Tommy than it is about Spider. Whereas like when Tommy does get killed, we've already established quite a strong relationship with him as a viewer, and we know he's a piece of shit, you know, in terms of like, you know, just killing whoever, and but he's still likable. He's just dead. There's no big to do about it.
There was nothing we could do about it. We lost him. And that whole fucking conversation after is like so like they say like this was a mafia thing. We had nothing. We couldn't do anything about it. And just the way they tell Jimmy on the phone, they're like, clerical error. He didn't make it. I want to go back. I want to talk about Maury for a second, who gets fucking like screwdrivered in the back of the head. Yeah. Like that one was that's a rough one. 'Cause like, there's no, they really kind of play there because Jimmy is like, you know, do you think Maury talks to his wife and he's explaining like, this is how hits happen. One guy gets paranoid, they start talking, and then, you know, boom. And he's all stressed about it. And then Jimmy's like, hey, you know what? Let's not do it. Don't worry about it. And so you think it's not going to happen. And then like they're all going to the diner after a night of drinks, and he's in the front seat, and Joe Pesci just screwdrivers him in the back of the head.
Yeah.
And Maury, like, I feel bad for Maury because they do the job and he's supposed to get money, and for reasons that are just not explained at all, Jimmy just won't pay him. Like he's constantly like, Jimmy, I need the money. And they're like, Maury, fuck off. Stop asking, you know? And you're like, why won't they give Maury his money?
Yeah. Yeah, poor Maury. He was super annoying, but I felt bad for him.
He's just kind of a schmuck, you know?
Yeah, he's just one of these guys. He probably always wanted to be a gangster, and he just not cut out for it.
Well, actually, so earlier on, he is saying with the job that he's really excited because if they get the money, then like he can get himself out of debt, and then he doesn't have to pay. He's like, no more nut, which means like he doesn't have to pay this weekly offering to Jimmy or whatever. So I think maybe that's why Jimmy isn't giving him the money. He's just like, I want to keep him in this position of like owing me money.
Yeah. Well, just give him some money and you know, let his wife pay off some debt before they off him.
Yeah. Oh, and that scene where like the wife comes to the house and she's like freaking out, and it's just like that was rough. She's like, I know something's wrong, and you're like, yeah. Yeah.
It's so weird watching these wives. They know what is going on, but and they're taking these things like the one walks in with the fur coat when Jimmy's getting pissed off about everyone spending extravagantly after this heist. And it's just like, it's just such a weird thing to think about, being complacent, but also not being active in it. And also, how do you leave that life? It's so complicated and interesting. I think I should probably watch The Sopranos.
You should definitely watch The Sopranos, and we'll set up a Patreon and make some money. Yeah, no, that's a losing industry. I'm sure there's like 30 fucking... Actually, there's a Sopranos rewatch podcast with Michael Imperioli that they're doing. Yeah, so if you want to... Well, actually, you know what? That probably wouldn't be a good way to do it if you've never seen the show, because I imagine they're pretty open about spoilers in it.
I'll watch it and then I'll listen.
There you go.
I'll watch all 9 seasons or whatever they did.
It's like 6, but like one of the last one I think is one of those bullshit 2-season things. So it's 7.
Oh, you know what? My family, we usually pick a series to watch over the Christmas holidays or to start watching. Maybe this year we watch The Sopranos.
It's a great show. It really is.
It's a heartwarming family tale.
It is about family. It's about family and it's about people. It's about the characters. I think that one thing I'll say that is different about The Sopranos is that, like, I think this movie definitely makes being a gangster seem a lot more fun. Like, this is like, yeah, it's a fun, bouncy movie. Sopranos is just like, God, it has its moments, but like Tony Soprano is an interesting character, but like he's such a fucking prick, you know?
Oh, okay. I like Edie Falco, and I know Lorraine Bracco's in it too at some point. So I'll watch she's just for these.
She is a fixture throughout the whole show.
Perfect.
Yeah,
I'll watch.
So now it's the 80s.
It's the 80s. Do a lot of coke and vote for Ronald Reagan.
Henry is doing and selling a lot of coke. I like how he's also, like, they sort of set this up earlier. He's got this other girl now that he's, you know, she's doing the business of cocaine with him. But it's the one that, like, when he was already had the mistress, he was, like, in the room with her, and they're like, you know, he's clearly fucking flirting with her right there. This part of the movie's fun because it's kind of like, I don't know, feels like the movie Crank almost, or it has the intensity of Moulin Rouge in terms of like the fucking frenetic energy.
Yeah, I love this part, especially like once we sort of get to that countdown scene with the meatballs and his brother and everything. It's just full on.
Yeah, I like when he's driving around in his car freaking out about the helicopters. And like, again, the music in that scene is just like so perfect for what's going on there. It's this kind of like bouncy 70s rock. And they're just like hustling across the city to like, he's got to sell some guns. He's got to like, I can't remember all the shit he had to do.
He's got to make meatballs. He's got to
go
his
get drugs.
Up.
He's got to pick up the drugs, and then he's got to like cut them, and then he's got to tape them to that babysitter who's like such a fucking brat. that character is just like, nah.
and there's something about the guns, like Karen's got to help him with. I like how at this point Karen's just like full on into this business with him. She's like, well, fuck it.
Yeah, like at this point it feels like, you know, this is not the glamour of 10 years ago when they first meet. You know, you can, well, I mean, Henry is like doing good business at this point. You know, it seems like that part is working, but it does seem like shit is real now. Like she's been
Yeah.
the wife for however long. They've got 2 kids and she's clearly the one with like all of the responsibility of taking care of them. And sometimes there are times when it's good, like when he gets out of jail and they get in the house, like that's the good times. But like, you can really start to feel things crumbling around here.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like that scene with De Niro smoking the cigarette. This makes me want to do cocaine. I've never done cocaine, but it kind of looks fun.
I would argue that it looks very stressful.
Yeah.
I don't think it...
Ray Liotta looks like fucking shit in this part of the movie. Like he really, they do a good job with whatever like makeup they did there. Cause he's pale. Yeah. I'm looking at my face in the Zoom right now and I'm basically just describing myself, but like pale with like red eyes and like his hair is all sweaty and
he looks very clammy.
Yeah. Yeah. Like he's in the hospital and the doctor is like, sir, are you okay? And then the babysitter fucks everything up cause she calls in the flight from the home phone and he gets arrested. Everybody gets arrested.
Everybody.
I like those cops. I like when they're in the station and they bring in all the like boxes of stuff and they're like, oh, what are we going to make, a cake?
Yeah, I love all the banter that happens in this movie. I think it feels really natural. I think that's what's so fun. Like, I don't know. We all know people who like, I don't know. I think of like my dad's friends or my grandpa's friends. That's how they all talk to each other. Like guys are kind of dicks to each other.
That's just how we roll.
Anyway, it's interesting. It's funny.
Karen flushes the drugs and now they're really fucked because they needed to sell those for money. Oh yeah, he gets out of jail because Karen's mom like mortgages the house or something like that. And he has to get in the car and like Karen is driving and the mom is in the front seat and he has to get in the back. And I'm just like, God, that seems like the most miserable car ride you could ever be in. But she sells the drugs and now they're fucked. And that is the Karen scene. Karen. Why did you sell the drugs, Karen?
It's like very Poltergeist, like when the mom's on the ceiling and just like rolling around, but Karen's just like on the ground, just rolling around in her 80s garb, like
wailing and gnashing.
What was I supposed to do? Yeah.
Which like is a fair point. Like, I don't know, they should have talked this plan through before. What do we do if we hide the drugs? But like they had a search warrant. They would have found it. She was right.
Yeah, I agree. Karen was right. She did what she had
Karen
to
was
do.
right. So basically Henry's like, fuck it, I'm not going to jail. I'm going to sell all these people out. I mean, the movie opens with like, this whole thing saying like, never rat, keep your mouth shut. And then, actually, on the other hand.
Yeah.
So, okay, you had a note saying that the guy in the scene where they're like negotiating their witness protection is an actual guy.
He was the actual federal prosecutor who put Henry Hill in the witness protection program, apparently.
That's wild. During that scene, I did observe something with that guy. Just something about him seemed off. I don't think it's that he's bad at acting or anything like that, but just his like demeanor is just very like, I don't know. He's like, well, I don't care what you do, but you will die. Like he's just so blunt.
Apparently a lot of that was improvised. He told the Wall Street Journal that all of his lines were improvised. Including that line, which is so good, like, don't give me the babe in the woods routine, Karen, when she's like, I don't know anything.
I mean, I wonder, improvised or like, is that just a line he's had to use a whole bunch of times, to like explain to criminals' wives, like, look, I know, you can say you don't.
I love this scene. I love how Henry's like, I don't want to go nowhere cold. And the guy's like, this is not how this fucking works. Like, this isn't a vacation.
Yeah.
And Karen's sitting there and she's just like, he's bronchial. Is
that even a word?
I don't know. I love that scene. And it's like, I think that's the final moment that we see like Karen's transformation. She's like full mob wife here.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're in it at this point. Like,
yeah,
things aren't looking good. So Henry rats everyone out in jail, and and we get that scene at the end where like Ray Liotta starts like gets up from the witness stand and it starts walking towards the camera and talking to it, which was kind of odd, but I don't know, it's the end of the movie. Sure, why not?
It's kind of interesting. Like breaking that fourth wall at that point seems strange, but I feel like the movie, everything ties up, but I feel like the ending is still very abrupt. From this point, it's sort of like, oh, okay, he's going into witness protection, and then we get like a flash of what his life looks like now, which I guess this movie was made like not long after this book was released and this story was really out there, but I don't know that it's the strongest choice for me, but yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You could have you could make a whole fucking movie about like the trial if you wanted to, but like that's not really what's interesting about this movie. Yeah, it just kind of seems like it's the end of the movie and it's a little kind of poetic thing. I mean, immediately after like he gives that speech. Oh, I can't remember if it's like where in the sequence of events is, but like we see him at his home and he's like getting the newspaper and he's just like, this sucks. And like the camera zooms in and he looks at it and he's, basically like, I'm just a fucking nobody now. I'm just a normal guy. And then we get it like Joe Pesci shooting the gun at the camera, which is like, it's just there, but it's great. I actually really like that. It's just a neat little touch.
I read something about that scene and I can't remember. It's like a nod to an old, I think, Western, right?
Okay. Yeah. It's like,
so that's why it's in there. Yeah.
I like it. It's just a fun little like bullet at the,
He's like, gotcha.
Yeah. And that's Goodfellas. It's good. It's a fun movie.
Yeah.
It's long, settle in, but, were there any characters or details, that we wanted to cover?
Not me. Like, I think I don't know. For me to pick this movie apart was really hard, or to even write notes about it. It's just a really solid movie. It's a lot of fun. There are great performances. It's an interesting story. If you like, I mean, I do like these sort of Italian mobster, gangster kind of movies, for the nostalgia of it. Like I think I mentioned in before we watched this, like growing up when I got really into movies that were like coming out of those classic 1940s, 50s pieces. I watched a lot of Italian mobster movies. So like for nostalgia's sake, I think this is a great one for people to go back and rewatch. Yeah, I think you're right. It's like a kind of a fun, like if you don't like The Godfather, if you don't want to like sludge through that, because I think it's a brilliant film, obviously, but this is a little more contemporary. It's fun. It's cool. It's kind of sexy. It's kind of, I don't know, poppy. If you like Scorsese and you haven't seen Goodfellas, what the fuck are you doing? Go watch it.
Yeah, maybe if you're some youngin' who just watched The Wolf of Wall Street and you're like, hey, I like seeing people do drugs and get successful by basically being criminals, all well edited well, and just go watch it. It's a good movie. I love it. I don't know. It's fun to watch, nicely edited, flashy, energetic, keeps you going the whole time. It's long, but it deserves to be.
Yeah, it doesn't feel long. It didn't for me. Like there was no point where I was like looking at the clock, like when is this over? Or I'm bored. It maintains its energy through the entire thing. There's no place where there's any sort of lull.
Yeah, I think it's like it is a nice time capsule of like here's some really good actors doing a really good job, kind of at the peak of their careers, like I said in the first chunk, like, Robert De Niro, I feel like about 15 years ago kind of started mailing things in, and it's just like, it's so good to see him in this. And as, I mean, he's basically playing to his strengths, but, right. He's very good to watch. And, Ray Liotta's good. I liked him in later stuff too, but he's just awesome in this movie.
Yeah. Everybody's great. It's kind of a who's who of Italian actors, I think. It's just the most classic Scorsese. You have to watch it. well, no, why would you not like Italian gangster movies but like Scorsese? Just watch it. If you haven't, rewatch it. If you've already seen it, I'm gonna give this movie 9 mystery paintings being stored under the table at your mom's house out of 10.
Oh, that's good. I'm going to give this 9 smuggled prison sausages out of 10. The best kind.
Yeah.
Okay, that is it for this week's episode. Thank you very much for listening. We will be back again next week, watching a movie that is a reasonable length of time, and that is Home Alone, the ultimate Christmas movie. So
Pesci's back, baby.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Great. I didn't realize that. Oh, we should rethink this. We can't do 2 Joe Pesci movies.
All of our Christmas movies are going to be Joe Pesci movies.
And you know what? Like, this movie kind of a little bit, there's enough Christmas in it that I'm going to count this as a Christmas movie. Because there
is enough Christmas.
There's the scene in the bar, and then there's also a scene where they open presents. And
is this like a Die Hard thing where we start a campaign to
make Goodfellas a Christmas movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, that bit has been played out with Die Hard, so I think like, yeah, we got to pick something new. We could do it.
Yeah.
Let's get really violent on social media about this. And I'm
going to start a change.org petition and I'm going to start circulating it.
And if your friends and family don't sign it, you will shame them publicly.
Exactly. So keep an eye out for that. And also watch Home Alone.
All right. Thanks for listening. If you could rate us on your podcast platform of choice, that would be appreciated. You can email us at expostwatcho@gmail.com. And you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at expostwatcho. Have a good week, everybody. Take it easy.